going to get a lot of texture and brush marks in the paint. We may even get a few trickles of paint. And because we're describing because we're describing wool, all of those random bits of texture and different bubbles and brush marks will help describe the random nature of all the different parts of the wool tangling with each other and falling on top of each other. The second effect that the thin paint will have is that some of our underlying colour beginning will show through. And that's great, that's what we want, because that will add yet another subtle layer of complexity to the work. Now, I'm not discriminating about whether I'm observing a shadow on the wool or the legs, or indeed when I get to it, the head. If it's a reasonably dark area, then I will apply some of this burnt umber. And one of the ways that's often recommended to assess the situation is to squint at the thing you're drawing, because squinting tends to take some of the colour out of what you're seeing, and certainly some of the detail. I do still do that occasionally. Over the years I've kind of stopped squinting and screwing up my face. I feel really it's almost an unnecessary amount of effort, really. I feel it's really just easier to just look at the thing and say, well, where is it darker and where is it lighter? But that said, you know, it's worth giving all these things a go. And enough people do recommend it that I feel it, you know, it probably is of benefit to many people. Now you can see for the face, all I've done is put in 3 patches of dark, one each for the eyes and one for the nostril and mouth area. But very quickly, we're starting to establish a sense of light and dark. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a light blue to the background to better define the outline of the sheep. To do this, I am going to use an approximately a 2-to-1 mix of titanium white and cerulean blue, and then to this I've added just the tiniest touch of the dilute burnt umber that I used just a moment ago. And I've done that just to stop the blue I'm putting down being a little bit too pure and a little bit too comic booky. It just knocks back the vibrancy of the blue a little bit and makes it a little bit more realistic. Although if you've seen my work, you'll know that, you know, I do like using vibrant colours. So exact realism in terms of the colours I'm depicting is not my main focus. Now what I'm doing with my 1-inch flat brush as I come up to the edge of the sheep is I'm deliberately coming in like this. I'm not painting around the outline. That's quite deliberate, and it's because the thing I'm painting is fluffy essentially, and so I want a fluffy edge. I don't want a smooth line anywhere around the outside of the edge of this sheep. Now, having more or less run out of paint on the brush, I've just mixed up some more of the light blue, but I put rather more of the titanium white in this time. And as you can see, I've started elsewhere on the outline of the animal, and I've done that quite deliberately because I want there to be some variation in the colour and tone of the background. I don't want just a single block of the same colour. And what I hope to do as I approach the other shade of blue is to scumble, which is this kind of movement, scumble the brush over the darker blue, and that will kind of blend the two together to a certain extent. I just need to fill in that little nook there. So you can see that very quickly, by isolating the sheep from the colour background, by putting this blue layer in, the sheep is very much become a thing on the page now. Now I'm going to just scumble the background down here as well, and I've deliberately made the blue come down to a lower level here than I have here, so that our horizon line isn't just completely horizontal, it's going to be coming down at some kind of angle. Okay, as I currently have blue on my brush, I've just mixed up a darker shade of the blue, so I've added a lot more of the Silurian blue. Still quite a dilute mix, and I'm now going to apply that rather gently over the areas which one would normally consider to be white. So, for example, the sheep's face is very much a white face for this particular sheep, and so I'm going to use that to use this blue rather to just paint over some of the warm yellows that we have in those areas at the moment. So that will include the face that I've just done, the edges of the ears, and also the legs, or the lower legs at least, the parts which aren't covered by wool. Now I don't want a complete covering here. This is simply acting as an intermediate layer. And having done this, I'm just going to drag the brush very, very lightly over a few select areas of the sheep's body where the wool is covering it. And again, I'm choosing the direction of my brush strokes quite carefully, because I want these to help me describe the contours of the wool. For the next stage of the painting, I've switched back to my smaller 3/8 of an inch flat brush, and most of the brush is covered with a mix of ultramarine blue, some fluorescent red, and then a good dollop of burnt umber. And then you can see I've just deliberately picked up a little edge, a little corner of the light blue and white. And I'm going to use this now to describe the regions of very dark shadow. And as you can see, as I apply that to the painting, that bit of white gets mixed in, and it just adds a little bit of variation to the marks that we're putting down. I've kept the paint quite thin on the whole, although in this area I did put it down rather more thickly, but in general I'm applying it still in very thin layers, because I want all of these wonderful textured layers that we've put down at the start, I want those to show through. And so by just dragging the brush lightly over these areas, I'm not making too big a commitment. If I want to add a little bit more colour later on to these areas, then it won't be too difficult for me to do that. So now we've just added some very dark areas for the eyes and the nostril area, and I think that's probably enough of the very dark colours for now, at least on the animal. I'm going to use this same colour, especially as it runs out on the brush, and as it's doing that you can see the mix of colours I had in there are beginning to separate. And so by rotating my brush and holding it at different angles, I can really get the most out of that mix.